Hi, my name's Nelson Hernandez, and many of you will remember the interview I conducted with Vasik Rajlich, author of the Rybka chess program, about 18 months ago. If you're watching this interview, it is very likely that you've heard about the controversy surrounding Rajlich and his program in recent days. Well, in a few moments, Vaz will answer some of the questions we all have. Briefly, here's what's happened. The International Computer Games Association, or ICGA, headed by Dr. David Levy, and really the closest thing computer chess has to a governing body, received a complaint alleging code had been improperly used from chess programs Crafty and Fruit in early versions of Rybka. The ICGA conducted what they characterized as a rigorous investigation and unearthed evidence that they say conclusively proves that Rajlich violated Rule 2 of their annual World Computer Chess Championship tournament. The rule stipulates that every entrant to the competition must be an original design. So there's clarity in this. Let me read you the rule, word for word. Each program must be the original work of the entering developers. Programming teams whose code is derived from or including game-playing code written by others must name all other authors or the source of such code in their submission details. Programs which are discovered to be close derivatives of others, for example by playing nearly all moves the same, may be declared invalid by the tournament director after seeking expert advice. For this purpose, a listing of all game-related code running on the system must be available on demand to the tournament director. The ICGA imposed 3 sanctions on Rajlich. First, they stripped the 4 World Championship titles he won from 2007 through 2010, as well as his tie for second in 2006, in effect disqualifying all Rybka entries that ever participated in their World Championship tournaments. Second, they demanded the return of all trophies and prize money that Rajlich won from their tournaments. Third, they have banned Rajlich and Rybka for life from competing in ICGA-sponsored events. In addition, there are also allegations that his use of other programs constitutes a violation of the General Public License, or GPL, of those programs, and as such, the matter has been referred to the Free Software Foundation, a U.S. nonprofit organization that litigates against software violators. Needless to say, this is the biggest news to hit computer chess in over a decade. The press loves a good scandal. As you can see from some of these articles, it's been pretty brutal out there. This one here is my favorite. British tabloids are the best, aren't they? Until now, Rajlich has been silent on these developments. Today, Independence Day, here in the U.S., he will speak his piece. Let's turn to him now, speaking to us by video conference from his home in Warsaw, Poland. Hi, Vaz.
Hi, Nelson. Nice to see you again, and thanks for taking an interest in this topic and for taking the time to do this interview. Before we start, I'd like to make a short statement about these ICGA allegations. First, I did not wrongly omit anything from our entry form, nor did I break any other tournament rules. Did not list Fruit on the entry form because there is no direct game-playing Fruit code in Rybka. Rybka uses a different board representation than Fruit and uses a different structure of search routines, so this should be quite clear. Now, it's true that I did take a number of things from Fruit which are above the level of source code. This is something that I've discussed many times something which is perfectly normal practice, and it's not something which is asked about on the entry form. Second, Ripka 1 was already disassembled and published back in 2006, and everything about Ripka 1 has been completely transparent for 4.5 years or so. So if one of our competitors or if the ICGA had a problem with something in Ripka 1 or with the information that I provided on our entry form, then that was the time to raise it, before the tournament. Once our tournament entry is approved, there's no grounds at all for reversing course and applying some kind of retroactive penalties. Third, if the ICGA wants to open this Pandora's box of what exactly is an acceptable level of engine similarity, why is Ripka being singled out? Why is Ripka being the only engine which is investigated? So there are a number of quantitative ways to measure engine similarity. For example, there are plunder hit rates, and Ripka similarity to fruit in terms of plunder hit rate is approximately average. There's also ELO. ELO is another objective measurement. Typically the top 5-6 engines are within maybe 50 ELO of each other, and Ripka was 150 ELO stronger than Fruit 2.1 and 100 ELO stronger than the top engine when she was released December of 2005, and later that gap grew to 200 ELO. So again, this simply suggests an above average level of originality. At any rate, there's simply no reason for Ripka to be singled out like this. If the ICGA wants to go down this path, they need to establish some kind of quantitative measures for what is and is not acceptable, and then they need to apply those measures to every single participant. Fourth, I completely disagree with the way this entire business was conducted. There was all kinds of public statements and accusations. The ICGA made an accusation. And by the time I was asked to address the accusers and discuss the topic with them, which is, again, not at all a proper protocol, but by this point they had themselves made multiple public statements. So it was pretty obvious to me that this was not going to be some sort of a fair hearing, and so I did not participate.
Would you say that in your current edition of, this is not the allegations that they've made, but I just want to kind of backtrack, okay? In Ripka 4, would you say that in the search and evaluation or any of the other auxiliary functions, there is any direct copying of fruit code anywhere in there?
Yeah, I'm afraid this is going to depend on the definition of auxiliary function.
Okay, well explain, please.
Well, Ripka has numerous code from other programs from the public domain inside. I use that throughout the code. That's kind of accepted practice, and that's that's legal, and that's code that's in the public domain. So that's. I'm not sure what you want me to explain, actually. Sorry to...
You say there's code in the public domain. You're saying, essentially, that you did use functions, not fruit code, not crafty code, but public domain functions, and they're perfectly legal to use. Is that correct?
Oh, sure. I mean, there's probably several dozen such things, yes.
But absolutely no fruit or crafty in your current version of Ripka.
Well, certain public domain functions may well be in Fruit and Crafty as well, and so they may be shared between Crafty, Fruit, and Ripka. Not really sure. And it's even entirely possible that I would have taken them from Crafty and Fruit and put them into Ripka. For example, the table-based code, the Nalimach table-based code, that I remember quite specifically taking from Crafty, so... And that's normal.
All right. So what you're telling me then, as I interpret what you just said, you have taken public domain code, which is perfectly legal, and there may be code in those engines that is the same as yours, but that's only because the code is public domain. It's not like you took their original code and put it into your into your version of Ribka. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's a good summary, I guess.
Is all of this true also for Ribka 3?
Yes.
Is it all true for Ribka 2 and all the subsequent versions of Ribka 2 that you put out?
Yes.
Is this true for Ribka 1?
Yes.
So Vaz, have you read the ICGA panel's conclusions regarding code that they feel is copied from Crafty or Fruit?
I'm familiar with it. I haven't read it in detail, and I haven't prepared some kind of a point-by-point rebuttal, but I am familiar with it, yes.
Well, in fairness to you, obviously this is the wrong forum for a point-by-point rebuttal of everything that they have found. I mean, if they've made 50 points, you're not going to sit here and exhaustively refute them. So I understand that. But my question to you is, if you've read it at all, is there any comment that you would like to make regarding their findings in general?
Not really. I mean, no.
Not really.
I actually don't even specifically remember any points. I mean, no, this is not... no, I don't have anything to say about that.
Can you foresee a time that you would ever address their points?
Yeah, I haven't really thought about that. I mean, I suppose that if there is some kind of, let's say, legitimate governing body that can control something that I want, then I could cooperate with that. That's entirely possible. Kind of hard to imagine it in practice, but I mean, in theory, that's quite possible, yes.
So what I infer from your response is that you don't recognize the ICGA as a legitimate governing body. Is that correct?
Well, okay, I guess since you put it like that, I guess if I were to participate in the procedure, it would have to have 3 properties. Number 1, there would have to be some kind of a legitimate governing body. Number 2, there would have to be some kind of incentive for me to participate. And number 3, the investigation would have to be conducted in a fair, impartial manner. So, you know, those 3 properties all have to be met, and then I'm ready to go.
So what you're saying then is that you do not believe that the ICGA conducted their investigation in a fair and proper manner?
Yeah, I would say that's a fair statement.
The ICGA alleged that you violated Rule 2 of their World Computer Chess Championship tournament involving program originality. What is your answer to that? No,
I don't believe that I violated that rule. Now, if you look at the rule, it is somewhat vague. For example, there's a clause in there about how each program has to be the original work of the developer. So, you know, that term original, that could be quite a wide term. You could apply that quite widely. You could make the argument that, you know, all kinds of similarities between programs exclude them from being original. So, you know, you can of course argue almost anything, but I would say, let's say under reasonable definitions of these terms, then it's pretty clear that Ribka is perfectly legitimate and compliant entry in the tournament, yes.
Alright, so what you're saying then is that the word original is not something you can just go to the shelf, pull down the dictionary definition of the word original, there it is, and that applies black and white to your case. You're saying it's more of it's a more complex and contextual issue. Is that what you're saying?
Sure. I mean, there is no, the word original does not, from its definition, you know, indicate the exact requirements for what, you know, what the program must look like.
So in other words, you're looking for something beyond a dictionary definition. You're looking for a technical definition of original. And you mentioned in your statement something to the effect that you're looking for some standard, you know, some defined standard beforehand that would measure the similarity of one engine's output to another. And that did not exist at the time of the tournaments and does not exist now. Is that right?
Well, if I was running a tournament, I think, okay, for a tournament director, I think there's kind of 2 basic different ways to go with this issue, okay? The first, and I think this is probably the most reasonable one, is basically to allow almost everything as long as there's not some kind of like blatant, obvious cloning involved, okay? And those, the cases where there's something really blatantly obvious, those are usually discovered in 5 minutes. So that's one possibility, and that's kind of what has been happening actually, basically until now. The other thing you could do is you could come in and you could really set some strict requirements. You could say, listen, this is what's okay, this is what's okay, this is what is not okay. If you're going to do that, you have to have some kind of a procedure which is applied automatically to every single entrant, and this procedure has to be numerical. You know, for example, if you want to go by analogy to, let's say, drug testing in the Tour de France, you know, they have an exact drug test. You know, you have a, you know, you take the blood sample and certain chemical properties are analyzed, and it's there's a very quantitative definition. And in fact, a lot of guys, you know, who use performance enhancing drugs use them, but they don't use enough to go above the thresholds. And so, you know, but the point is the thresholds are clearly defined and they're applied to everybody. And so that's kind of the second way to do it. Now, in practice, I don't think that's going to work, because I think any tournament that's going to enforce standards like that, the programmers just won't show up. And it just won't really, it's just going to be too much, you know, there's just not enough incentive to play these tournaments. But in theory, you could go down that path. And if the tournaments had big prizes and you really had an impartial committee of kind of, you know, neutral guys, then I think you could possibly do that.
All right, well, okay, in your opening statement, you also said that you had studied fruit and that you had taken ideas from fruit. I mean, you know, I think in that period of 2005, everyone was looking at fruit code, right? Because it was kind of a breakthrough. So, you know, was there anything in particular that you remember that you know, was particularly good about fruit that you thought was extremely helpful in your programming code?
Oh, sure. By the way, it's not just ideas. So that's, you know, it's not just a question of code versus ideas. I mean, there's a lot of different things you can take from let's say program A can take from program B. You can take the flow of the code, the setup of the code. You can take even data structures. You know, there's all kinds of different ways that you know, you can benefit from the existing programs. So that's, you know, it's not just a matter of ideas. Of course, ideas in computer chess are the most important, because computer chess is about ELO. It's kind of a little bit unusual in that, you know, most software projects are about code quality, code, you know, the code itself, code structure, code layout. Computer chess is more about the algorithms. So that's one thing about computer chess. But I wouldn't say, first of all, that it's just a matter of ideas. I mean, there's a lot more that you can take from a program than just ideas. As far as specifically what, I mean, well, boy, that could be a long discussion. I think one of the kind of nice things about fruit is that it was very concise. A lot of programmers, and I'm definitely in this category, the more time we have to work, the bigger the code gets, the messier it gets. So I would say that's kind of the number one thing. I mean, there's a lot of things, but that's, I would say, if I had to pick one thing, that would probably be it.
All right. So would you like to publicly thank Fabian for making fruit?
Oh, sure. I think I've done that a few times.
All right. Well, maybe that's the first step of, you know, reconciliation. I'm hoping.
Okay. Well, my problem isn't with Fabian. I mean, he's not the problem. He's a very good programmer, and that's...
You don't think Fabian's the problem? He's the first one to lodge a complaint. What are you saying?
Oh, I didn't know that, actually. So Fabian, the programmer, is not the problem. Fabian, the complainer, I guess, could be a problem. I don't know.
Oh, you can't be serious.
Fabian, the programmer, is not... Fabian, the complainer.
Oh man, you're killing me. You didn't know what he wrote. You haven't read his complaint? For God's sake, Vaz, you're killing me, man.
No, but here's the thing though. Okay, I'll give you another answer if you want. You know, there's a lot of noise out there. I mean, a lot of, you know, people make accusations. The question is, what happens with those accusations? You know, who follows through, who, you know, pretends to be some kind of an authority and a judge. So that's, I don't really have any problem with somebody accusing me of something. I mean, I consider that's kind of normal.
So, Vaz, it sounds like you really haven't studied the ICJ's findings thoroughly enough to categorically refute every point. Is that right? Would you say that's correct?
Yeah, I guess. I'm not ready to do that right now. But you can ask me questions if you have some specific question about something. Feel free to ask.
No, Vaz, I don't think today I'm going to, act as prosecutor and go point for point through all the allegations. It would make too long of an interview. This is something between you and them. I'm not going to get in the middle of the particulars today. But I am interested. I mean, they have made these allegations. They have done it in a way that you found objectionable. This story has appeared in like 5,000 websites. It's appeared in the British tabloids. It's appeared in Der Spiegel. My question to you, if you're prepared to comment, is what do you intend to do about it?
Well, I would say I have no comment about that.
What would it take for you and the ICGA to be back in good graces again?
Oh, I mean, I don't see that happening at this point. Maybe the resignations by everybody there.
Vaz, do I interpret your answer as a call for Dr. David Levy to resign?
No, really not. I mean, I just don't care, so you asked me the question, so not going to happen.
No, Vaz, either you can't say that. You just contradicted yourself. Either you would call for them to resign or you wouldn't. It's one or the other.
No, but I mean, my answer really is I just don't care.
They asked for all the trophies you won and all your prize money back. What do you intend to do about that?
Yeah, I haven't really thought about it. I'm not even sure what exactly prize money means. As far as I know, there was no prize money. I just haven't thought about it.
Do you think maybe Dr. Levy ought to send you some canceled checks to prove that you made some prize money?
Yeah, I have no idea what that means. So there was no prize money by my definition of the word prize money, so...
Okay. The ICGA says that they repeatedly asked you to address their findings and you more or less ignored them. Would you say that's true?
Yeah.
And my understanding is that the ICGA has referred this this matter to the FSF, which is the organization that pursues GPL violations. I mean, do you have a comment on that?
No, I don't have any comment about things like that.
All right. Well, okay, Vaz, then let's, it looks like we've pretty much exhausted this topic. I'm sure that others would think that we've only just scratched the surface, but this is as far as I'm prepared to go with it. People can judge your answers as they wish. So let's kind of move on to some other topics. I mean, let's talk about the collateral damage that this may have caused. Something that I'm very interested in personally is whether you are now in the doghouse with Iveta.
No, actually, we had some fun with this, I guess. Not yet.
How about your relationship to Chest Base and Convecta? Is there any news there?
Yeah, that's not really something, I can't speak for other people, so they would have to, you'd have to speak with them if you want to find out what really they think. But as far as I know, everything's fine. I enjoy working with these companies. I feel like we have a good relationship, and we have some plans, going forward, so that's... But you never know how the future will turn out, of course.
Have you talked to them since this thing broke?
Well, those would be private discussions, so I'm not ready to talk about things like that.
So have any of your chess projects or plans been affected by the ICGA's decisions?
Well, my plans haven't changed, so yeah, I have a nice little spike in sales this last week, and who knows what else will come along, but as far as like what I do every day, no, nothing's really different. I'm just working, trying to get ready for some upcoming things.
You say you've had a spike in sales. That sure sounds like there's no such thing as bad publicity.
Yeah, actually, I usually take this point of view that I don't do marketing, I don't do hype, I just do product. I just do quality product. I try to concentrate on that. But this week I had like 4 times as many sales as average for a week, you know, so it's like, kind of makes me think maybe I should try to get more stuff going like this, you know, somehow.
So are you still going ahead with the Ribka cluster?
Well, it's actually already been launched, so we gone through some twists and turns, but we do have, you can already rent the Ribka cluster. There is an announcement about it on our website. So Felix Kling made a website for us, and so you can, if you want to rent the cluster, you can rent it from Lukasz. Now, the existing option is severely limited in a number of ways. I'm not sure I want to get into all that right now, but basically you can only rent it for continuous chunks, and it's quite expensive. So we're working on making it more accessible. So you can rent it with smaller chunks and for smaller segments of time. And you know, so we're working on that, and when that's ready to go, then we'll have something to say. You know, we'll have it'll be something that's more that should have a much wider audience than what we currently offer. But yeah, we're working on the cluster. I'm of course working on the engine, and Lukasz is doing all kinds of work on networking and just simply his setup. He's got a collection of hardware, and he's got all kinds of scripts for managing it, and so yeah, we're simply you know, improving what we have.
How many cores are you up to now?
I believe it's something like 290 physical cores, so 580 logical cores. Not sure what the exact number is actually, but that's I think that was it.
All right, so Vaz, I'm sure you're familiar with the ranking lists for computer chess engines. You know, you dominated those lists for 5 years. Last December, a program called Houdini came into the picture and is now about 50 points ahead of you. Pretty much the undisputed strongest PC engine around. Do you have any comment on that?
Well, I'm not going to comment on other engines, so...
Okay. All right, you don't want to talk about specific engines, so let me try to ask you the same question, but in more general terms, without talking about specific engines. Okay, just talking the big picture here. You have Houdini ahead of you, and you have 3 or 4 engines that are really knocking at the door, and probably with one or two more releases will be ahead of you. I mean, those are Stockfish, Komodo, Critter, and I'm hearing rumors that there's an unreleased version of Thinker out there that is, you know, pretty much at the Stockfish level. So if all 4 of these guys increased by maybe 30 ELO points, you could be down in 6th place. So without talking about the engines, how would you feel about being in 6th place?
Well, ELO is important. ELO is one important aspect of an engine, so that is something I pay attention to, and I do try to maintain high ELO in the rating lists with my release version, together with some other things. It's not the only thing that I focus on, but it is important, yes. And so, you know, when Ribka 5 comes along, then I'll have hopefully some more to say about that.
You know, Vaz, I was really kind of expecting and hoping that you would, you know, come at me with an answer more like Arnold Schwarzenegger, and you'd say, "I'll be back." I mean, why aren't you telling us, you know, absolutely you'll be back at the top of the list?
Well, you know, I have a number of goals, you know, a number of kind of, let's say, computer chess sub-projects, and, you know, I have to make these kind of decisions, and then sometimes opportunities come along that are too good to pass up. So I can't, you know, one of the things is, so I'm a one-person company, and that has, of course, some drawbacks, but it has one really great advantage, which means I can be very flexible to take advantage of opportunities. And so that's, you know, I'm not going to make any promises about what's going to happen, what I'm going to do, because everything is pretty much liable to change at any point. So of course I have a plan. Right now I have a plan, but it can change, and so that's why I can't say what's going to happen with Ribka 5 or with, you know, any other things that I'm planning right now.
So you're not even going to give us a clue on when Ribka 5 might be released?
Well, I can do that, okay? So again, this is a disclaimer now. This is just a plan right now. It can change at any moment. But most likely we'll have Ribka 5 at the end of this year. That's kind of, let's say, I would say that's the most likely outcome. And the second most likely would be early next year, kind of, let's say, in the spring. And, regardless of specifically how strong that is or what kind of features there are, it'll be a good release. If I'm going to release a public engine, it's going to get a certain amount of effort from me, a certain amount of quality, and so you can be sure that it's going to be something worth having.
Are you planning on participating in any tournaments in the foreseeable future?
Well, I'm hoping that freestyle will finally get rolling again. It's been kind of a little bit, we had those PAL freestyle tournaments, let's say, until about 2 years ago, and we've had kind of very little since then. We had this Mundial chess, which was quite interesting, but it seems to have been a one-off event. And so now there's a number of things that I think are actually somewhat likely to kick into gear. But so I'm really kind of keeping my fingers crossed. I think that would be really great if we could have some freestyle again.
Yeah, obviously, I would be interested in that myself. My team will be there if there is such a tournament, and I'm sure yours will be. And we might even face each other head to head. That would certainly be interesting.
Yeah, that would be fun. Bring back some old memories, I guess.
Vaz, looking at the totality of the thing, looking at the fact that you've been called a cheater and much more in thousands of websites, and even the New York Times and Der Spiegel, you seem like you're in pretty good spirits.
Well, actually, when I first started getting accused of all these horrible things, at first, I wanted to kind of fight against it, and I would really try to, argue. But at some point, I guess I just kind of got used to it. It's like at this point, it's almost like chatting about the weather or something. So yeah, it doesn't really register anymore, I guess.
All right, Vaz, thank you very much for granting me this exclusive interview. It's been a real pleasure to meet with you again, and some newsworthy stuff this time.
Yes, it was great to talk to you. It was really fun. So, thank you.
All right, folks, so long.